Hey everybody, welcome to the Orange and Brown Talk podcast, a Wednesday edition. I am Dan Lobby and I'm joined today by Mary Kay Cabot. Mary Kay, how are you?
I am really sad about college football today. So I am very corona weary and I am just struggling with the whole thing today, like I'm sure a lot of other people are. How are you?
Well, I can't disagree with that. We're going to get into that a little bit here. And also Scott Pasco joining us. Scott, how are you?
Good. And it's more than just football too. It's
Right.
all fall sports, which that's a lot of athletes out of work there.
Does this mean anything for the NFL in your guys' mind? Is this foretelling anything for the NFL, or is it just a completely different situation, completely different circumstances?
You know, I think it's completely different circumstances in terms of the NFL trying to get their season played, because once again, as we've talked about before, there's a players union and they really fought hard for certain things to happen. So they've got all kinds of safety measures and protocols in place. They have the money all figured out so that they're protected in that way. And college players just didn't have the benefit of any of that. So it's a completely different situation. And I don't think the cancellation or the postponement of college football informs what might happen with the NFL this fall. I think they'll still forge ahead and plow forward and try to get this season played, as long as there's not, 7 teams with 30 positive guys. So I still think that it will be all systems go. I think the way that it will impact the season or the draft will be, will there be some NFL football played on Saturdays? And also, how will it impact the draft? Not only who gets to, be in the draft or not be in this draft, but just the draft in Cleveland and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, the draft in general, I think, is the huge, what's impacted the most. Trevor Lawrence, people from Clemson, the quarterback, people expect him to be a number 1 pick. If there's no season played, if he decides to enter the draft, I'm not sure exactly how that would work yet with canceling and eligibility. But if that was the case, he'd probably still be the number 1 pick. You play a full season, that might not be the case. We've all seen players who kind of come out of nowhere and prove themselves. Guys we weren't talking about early in the college season, all of a sudden they're in the conversation for the number 1 pick by the end. So it would be very weird from a scout's perspective and preparing for the draft based on what you saw last year, and there would be, I'm guessing, a lot of players who just wouldn't get the chance to really show what they can do. There's guys who maybe, are just coming into full-time starting spots this year who would have rose on board. So it would be interesting to see how many players decide to opt out and come to the NFL, if they would get a season accrued or something for college. I'm not sure how that would work, because you're still having a birthday in there. You're still getting older, but you're not actually playing that year of college football. So I think the draft is where you're really going to see this kind of throw things around and mess things up.
Joe Burrow tweeted this, right? If this had happened last year, he wouldn't have been the number 1 pick. Mm-hmm. He says he would have been looking for work. So, Trevor Lawrence is safe. Justin Fields probably could have put himself in that number 1 pick conversation if he wasn't there already, but he's going to be most likely the number 2 pick or top 5 pick. But what I think is interesting, and Mary Kay, this goes to something you've been talking about, it almost seems like there might be some extra benefit this year, if you're a team with some draft capital, to trade a first-round pick for somebody, for an established guy, maybe Yannick Ngakoue, for example, because there's going to be so many unknowns in the first round of this draft. This might be a year where you're more willing to kind of take that first-round pick and throw it away on somebody who's more established, as opposed to taking a chance on someone that you just don't have a lot of tape on.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, unintended consequences of this. I think the NFL and the NCAA are going to have to work very closely together to make sure that this works out in the best interests of these college players whose NFL careers are potentially horribly hurt by this. And whether that means, making sure that the season in the spring starts early enough so that they can also be part of the draft or prepare for the draft, or does it mean that the draft gets moved later? So, there's all kinds of things that need to be worked out now.
Look, it's going to be strange on Saturdays in the fall not seeing football. Of course, we might see some NFL football, but not seeing those big college stadiums. And there's nothing like a big college game.